Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Establish your own gold standard. Let's explore! The concept of a gold standard, it almost seems foreign these days. Even amongst many of us who accumulate precious metals, we almost kind of scoff at the idea that we would ever return to such a thing. There's talk about it. Some people say it's bound to happen. Some people say it's just a pipe dream, that we could ever go back to a gold standard, not only in this country, but any other country around the world, as our currency that we utilize for daily transactions, the dollar, and recognized by over 60% of the nations around the world for transactions between nations. This particular note is the standard. It is the fiat standard. That's right. Fiat currency, as noted there. Pun intended. But what about setting a gold standard up for yourselves? That's what this video is about. What inspired me on this is an article shared with me by John Firth that comes from a position, well, from somebody who's selling gold. But I thought this was so well written, and the overall idea of it is empowering. So first, let's discuss about what money is. Let's define it again, because gold, as we know, many of us in this community understand it to be the ultimate form of money. And that money has been well established by the central bank of central banks, which is the Bank of International Settlements, as a Tier 1 asset. And that means that it is up to and above on par with cold, hard cash. So we do live in this age of fiat money, which essentially means by decree of the government. In other words, politicians and central bankers decide what is money, how much of it there is, and who gets how much of it first. Well, as I've just mentioned earlier, finally the central bank of central bankers has recognized gold as money. In fact, central banks around the world hold it. This usually, though, in terms of fiat money, means that politicians and their monetary henchmen come up with the harebrained schemes like the euro, 0% interest rates, and the ever so popular quantitative easing. We are now in it to infinity. In fact, the history of fiat money is a miserable one. Hyperinflation, money printing, depressions, 15% interest rates, debasement, and financial mismanagement, just to mention a few episodes. When you give a politician control of something, it's only a matter of time before they muck it up somehow. That's for sure. And when they muck up our money, they muck up the entire economy with it. A lot of people have an underlying sense right now that something is just not right with money. And that is something for sure that we can take to the bank, is that our money system is screwed up. Now, the article, I think, correctly defines fiat money. I still do believe that that this currency that you see here is in fact a form of money. It has value, it has faith, because the government decrees. Like it or not, all of us who accumulate precious metals have faith in that unit of measure. There are, of course, alternatives to fiat money, as you're looking right before you here. This is one alternative here, which is what I'm going to talk about here, getting on this establishment of our own gold standard. The government doesn't have to be in control of the way it is now, but very few people understand these alternatives. Not so long ago, the word cash meant physical gold. As recently as 1970, gold itself was still money. In fact, in reality, it is today, like it or not, for some folks, like Ben Bernanke. And that kept politicians in check. They couldn't just print gold to finance their deficits. And bad economic policies, such as too much government spending, meant that gold left the country until a humiliating crisis struck. Having gold as money keeps politicians accountable to something very real and measurable, which they cannot manipulate. That's why government debt exploded after the 1970s, when the last link to gold was lost, essentially closing that gold window Richard Nixon did in August of 1971. Since then, governments and central bankers have been in complete control. And political meddling with the money supply is back now after the coronavirus, and even beforehand, which I've talked about in prior videos, with the Federal Reserve injecting themselves in the lending in between banks, which is known as repurchase agreements or repos. There's even talk of negative interest rates in the United Kingdom. So what does this mean? Essentially, the bank could charge you money for your savings. And with the savings rate where it is now, you're barely making anything holding your money in the bank. So what do we do now to act against the threat of negative interest rates? Well, don't wait your time on waiting for government to go back to the gold standard. In fact, Chancellor Gordon Brown of the United Kingdom sold most of Britain's gold at $200 and some odd an ounce. And so he wasn't very smart, for sure. So you can go to your own personal gold standard and get the benefits of monetary stability, even if the government isn't providing them. All you need to do is declare your own personal gold standard is to own some physical gold. It really is that simple. But why bother? What is the effect of this? Well, the gold price has actually been doing better than every other type of investment. In fact, I would argue with that notion, in fact, and say it's not an investment at all. It is a hedge against economic instability. Gold protects us from the devaluation of the dollar. Over the last 20 years, it has outperformed the stock market comfortably. You don't hear a lot of financial professional talk about this because there's no dividends that they can collect, or you can collect even, or no fees to hold physical gold. Gold gives you wealth, the stability of gold, just as gold is used to lend its stability to the value of our currency. Think of owning some gold as laying a foundation for everything else. The basic idea is that the value of your assets might go up, down, or both over time. The gold you own probably won't be doing anything particularly exciting, which is actually a good thing, because it is essentially wealth held in your hands. And it is something that's going to adjust to inflationary rates, high or low. That's right. It will protect you during a deflationary crisis as well. Think about this. If the price depreciates for a particular asset that you need and gold falls in price, it most likely will not fall by nearly as much as those other items that would fall in price, especially if they're staples like milk, bread, meat, and other things. Gold isn't subject to interest rates at all. Gold doesn't pay dividends. It's gold. It is a metal that has survived different empires, epochs, and nation states and currencies throughout the age of man for millennia. And it's provide wealth protection for us all. In fact, no matter what comes in the future in terms of digital currencies, cryptocurrencies, and the like, and even going away from any kind of physical cash, gold will stand and weather those storms where transactions are made through ones and zeros over an internet connection. It will still survive and provide value. No, we can't take a gold coin and exchange it for goods and services right now, at least in most places. But it is a thing of wealth, it is a thing of beauty, and it is money. And it is money that is recognized by central banks around the world, and those central banks hold on to it, and definitely will do so, no matter what governments, global organizations, or we do. And so we hold it to put ourselves on a gold standard. And that standard will discipline our financial doings throughout our lives. For every ounce you hold, it empowers you, and it disciplines your financial situation. Because that's what it's about. It's about discipline. As long as you hold it, it's going to do what it does. Sit there. And because of its inertness, it is doing a great thing by preserving your wealth and protecting you against spending and against an ever deflationary dollar. And so that is why it is good for us to empower ourselves by establishing our own gold standard. And that is where we must shine. Gold will shine on, and we will shine on through knowing that we are protecting our wealth with this shiny yellow metal. So I hope that you will embrace gold in your portfolio. And I haven't talked a whole lot about silver. Silver has value too, but gold has a value that is the ultimate and stable money throughout millennia. Silver has some of those aspects, but its uses have been so diverse, it has been seen as a commodity these days. And I certainly think there is a great benefit to holding silver as well as gold to diversify your portfolio. But being that it is a volatile metal, this is why you don't see many nations on a silver standard. Gold, you can pack a lot of value in a small space. And I think that's kind of what it's about. It's about storing and protecting your wealth and having it in your possession or easily accessible, like this gold is here. When I pack this up, I'm going to put it in a very safe place. And it may not be in my location. In fact, I know it won't be. I'll have to take it somewhere else, but I know I can have access to it because I know who holds it, and I know that it is like the vault of the central bank. And so, when we get on our gold standard for ourselves, we are empowering ourselves, we are disciplining ourselves, and we are testing history with the value of the precious metal gold. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch this video, and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.